I don't I don't think I like Zenless Zone Zero. I know, right? Ooh, how brave, how original. I was gonna say something like, "Oh, he likes Wuthering Waves more." No, 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 no. I truly think I don't want to get off the bed or coming home for a good quality time playing Zenless Zone Zero. And honestly, if you like it, cool, let it rip and have fun. Personally, I think too the game's fun gameplay wise, not so much on other vices, but when it's time for combat, I'm having a good time, and that alone would get like an 8 or 7 from me. However, the game has glaring issues that I think we kind of overlook since it is a MiHoYo game, which is the gacha part and the writing part. Yes, the gacha part of the game is one of the massive issues of this game, in my humblest opinion. I mean, look, I've played gacha games before, and it is apparent that in those games, you would need to spend more money and lots of time to make a perfect or at least a viable set of characters to progress the game. In a MiHoYo game, or wait, in a MiHoYo game, although it is a gacha game, some of their games gave us an option to alleviate the lack of gacha participation, like able to dodge, iframes, and the inclusions of relics or artifacts, so we can grind to get the best or the most suitable stats for the character. Depending on how gracious your RNGs is at one moment, the grind can be really intimidating and long, which I think 99% of people would be experiencing. This is the plus side of their titles, and also their minus. But then again, that is only be a thing if you're into min-maxing games, which unfortunately I am. I mean, this game could ask you for real money if you're not careful, and the grind is something I don't want to experience ever because I'm old and grumpy and easily offended by the bullshit a game has to offer. So I have to calculate a lot what's the best for the characters I have, naturally. And it's just disheartening to just realize that the game would be a breeze if you just spend real money to pull characters, and from there, you'll get more dupes and a couple of S ranks, or even better, dupes of S ranks. You need duplicates to, for more upgrades, basically. Do you really need them though? No? Does it easier if you have them though? Hell yes. Well, to be fair, that conclusion was deeply rooted from the basic philosophy of gacha games for rewarding your money flow and incentivize you to pull more, while I also happen to know there are cases that were not as severe. But on this case, you would have to game easier by just spending more money. I don't mean getting A ranks in missions and call it a day. You see, an action game isn't an action game if you don't get better and getting higher ranks on your own. The incentives of DMC and Bayonetta, for example, is to get higher rankings because that's where the dopamine kicks in. If you play an action game for the sake of story progression only, I'll just straight up say you're playing it wrong. The purpose of being able to do sick executions, sick combos, means to get higher ranks, not just to survive. I know I might sound like I'm saying a point twice. All I'm saying is that the mastery of the game is the goal of an action game, whether in execution or as in game knowledge, exploits, etc. Now, you might think, well, if you can beat it now, you can always do other stuff or main story first and then combat later. Nah, that's not how it works, buddy. Elden Ring is probably a lot of people's argument about a game's difficulty, where it has a free-form way to introduce you to difficulty stages. But ZZZ is no Elden Ring. The game presented its difficulty very cut and dry. You progress through the story, and as the story progresses, you'll have harder enemies. It's sequential, not free-form. So if I can't beat this one mission with an S by all the resources I have in hand, it's not on me, it's on the devs. Because an action game means also another thing. You're fighting the odds against your favor, and you can still come out victoriously just by skills and mastery alone. That is how DMC and Bayonetta played. Hell, every action game does that. However, do you know how to get better in ZZZ? Undoubtedly. Just pull an S rank for a character like 7 times, bro. Easy. More upgrades that way. Well, so when a gacha game is under the pretense of an action-centered game, you can't help yourself but wonder, is my build or my party as of now going to be last long until the end of service days? Obviously no, and that realization really disheartened me. There's no really room or any motivations to improve anymore because you can just tell yourself you didn't spend enough money, and honestly, that sucks. In video games, especially in action game, in my very humblest opinion, it needs the challenge. It doesn't matter what kind of challenge it is, but there must be a setup where you can just invest it into the game and trying to be better. However, in Zenless Zone Zero, there's little incentive to be better for a number of reasons. A. You can roll for another character. B. You don't really need a skill to get a character. C. To level up the character, you would only need some skill, but not really need to master it. Like what? You get better time in those combat material areas, and you would only get probably around 2 or 3 mats more? Clearly worth the effort. Maybe, if the game doesn't have much F2P grind stuff like music discs, maybe it would be better, but then again, it is a MiHoYo game. Obviously, we would allow them to do so because it is a MiHoYo game. Like, come on, the game really only needs cosmetics and stuff to make money. Take a look at PSO2, for example. The game has been around since 2012 or 2014, if I remember correctly, and they only provide cosmetics and shortcuts to the endgame stuff, like Capsule. Not to mention, those endgame stuff actually can be obtained off Gacha and just grind it out. So the endgame Gacha banner, usually for people who just work their ass off in real life and just want to get there without the grind. Plus, it's not really been a great experience since the writing is so damn awful. The script is full of jargons, they talk like not people but more like anime robots, the plot is really dense, and even it is so shallow, it felt like a waste of time. It's been painful to get through the story part in this game. And the main thing is, the game has a lot of it. I thought it was marketed that this game would be a dungeon crawler, roguelike, flashy action, heavy oriented kind of game. Hell, it even had the Street Fighter 6 collab. But no, actually, it's mainly a visual novel with a dungeon crawler, roguelike, flashy action, heavy oriented kind of game on the side. And it's a hella bad visual novel as well. Every time my character speaks, I wish I would get a refund for those 100 gigabytes and 70 gigabytes worth of download. And don't get me wrong here, I think the VAs, the voice actors and the actresses, are doing a great job. They're trying their best to deliver a voice of a character out of horrible script, and they did it. Beyond the incomprehensible words, I still can figure out what kind of people they are, and I think that goes for the VAs. If I have to say more, it's probably more of the writer's fault or the localization team fault, but I mean, hell, and on top of it, I think the voice directions need to be reevaluated as well. I mean, I don't know. Not a lot of people are complaining about this for some reason. Maybe I'm just being a kooky or a hater, saying the writing is bad. But just so everyone knows, I've played story-heavy games, and even another story-heavy gacha game, FGO. I have more fun reading FGO story than any minute listening to any ZZZ characters talking. And I'm not even that far in FGO, but I can say it's far more entertaining compared to what ZZZ has to offer. Personally, I think this is what really made people pissed off. Not the TV, not the story bit being too much, but the goddamn awful writing that just makes people uninterested with the world, with the characters, and just want to play as soon as possible. And by playing, I mean not the TVs, but the actual combat, the supposedly meat and bones for a game from the people who were saying they were inspired by fighting games and even looking up to an FGC figurehead. I was so thinking that the game would be a breakthrough from MiHoYo, from just making gacha slops to make more premium games, a double A at the very least. But as soon as I hit sub 10 hours on the game, I realized this is just another gacha game under false pretense of being an actual game. Sloppy plot, horrible writing / dialogues, combat under 10 minutes mostly, and lastly, too reliant on resource sinking to be an action game. And by all definition that I know, this is a bad action game. Then again, it is just a mere opinion. If this is your first taste of what is an action game, then welcome to the club. If this is your first taste to the gacha genre, I'm deeply sorry. Play Nikkei or Fate Grand Order instead. Don't half-ass it. Beat culture all the way. Anyways, that's all. I'm a random guy on the internet signing off. Have a good one, everyone.